Computer,
Yes.
do we have any news sequences?
I have a beta sequence I've been working on. Would you like to see it?
All right.
Okay.
Oh! I'm okay.
Gatsby here with a second draft. Before we start, for those curious, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot between 2006 and 2013. Mostly attending locals in Houston, but also through online clients like Beyond and Dueling Network. In 2013, I took an extended break from the TCG, only to be looped back in by Duel Links in 2017, until I realized that it's probably cheaper to just buy physical cards, instead of resetting a main box for a playset of 3 URs, through a strategy that'll lose to the next structure deck released with an overtuned skill. In terms of recent retro events, I was featured on Legacy Retro Format's channel for my performance in a side event that I participated in after going X2 due to not realizing that Nibiru only has 600 defense. I was also fortunate enough to participate in the 500-man Ultimate Time Wizard event at the WCQ in Austin, Texas in 2024, where I bricked in round 1 and in round 5 I was unceremoniously dunked on by Disaster Dragons resolving Future Fusion. I still participate locally when I can in my favorite retro format of choice, Edison. Initially, I wasn't planning on making this video, as I felt it would be derivative to talk about Konami's announcement, after almost everything was covered by creators like SunnyYGO, MBT, Joshua Smith, Ruxin34, and several others, but most importantly, the load-bearing wall of the Edison format, E3 Keegan, who, and massive props to the guy, responded with his own announcement, declaring that he would host a really big Edison tournament, also known as an RBET, the exact same day as the WCQ in a nearby venue utilizing the original Edison rule set that duelists had previously been preparing for. This was met in turn by the community he played a large part in cultivating, flocking to his signups. You love to see it. Back to Konami. At the time of rewriting this, a few things have changed. In response to the backlash from the Time Wizard tournament rules stating, starting at the NAWCQ, current game mechanics and current card text will be used for Time Wizard events. Konami has revised this to read, Time Wizard events will use the game mechanics and card text of the era in question at the NAWCQ. So while the absolute end of Retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Forever and Always Amen has been put on a hiatus, I'm still going to focus mainly on Edison since it's my favorite retro format and that I'm most familiar with, to consolidate some points from other creators, highlight a few key topics I feel people are missing from the discussion, and give my overall opinion. Starting with affected erratas, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, especially now that Konami has revised their stance. If you want a full description of all the cards that would have been affected by these changes, check out Sunny's video, link in the description. He does a great job. I only want to talk about 2 cards, starting with Treeborn Frog. Being one of the core cards in a top-performing deck in the format, the hard once per turn is a devastating change for the card that demanded an answer. Frognark isn't completely off of the table, but this would have an impact on the strategy that previously didn't have to worry about cards like Royal Oppression, while also cutting into the free bodies that fuel tributes and enemy controller steals during the standby phase. Where I wouldn't mind seeing errata versions of Treeborn Frog or Future Fusion, a card where I'm left frustrated is Goyo Guardian. The 6-star Synchro with 2800 attack and the ability to steal monsters was limited in 2009 and banned in March of 2011 in both the OCG and TCG. For the TCG, it went to limited in July of 2014, semied in January 2015, and unlimited in April 2015. The errata only came down well after it had already been reintroduced into the TCG in January of 2017, where the OCG placed it at limited and required an Earth Tuner be used when synchro summoning Goyo Guardian. Despite it being an absolute powerhouse at the time, you were only ever allowed 1 copy, and while I can't vouch for OCG players, I struggle to believe that anyone would think that this card is worth the added hoop of using an Earth Tuner in 2017. Which leaves me hesitant to say that I would want to invite erratas into the format, as it could lead to cards completely losing their identities. When talking about the game mechanics, however, it feels even more arbitrary. We want to use the modern rule set, but you can still draw going first. Just make sure you're on historic field zones, so no EMZ for Edison, but we need to draw the line at ignition effect priority. In my opinion, the removal of ignition effect priority is probably the single change with the most amount of implications on the format. The mechanic was removed from the OCG in March of 2011 and the TCG in April of 2012. Ignition effect priority would allow monsters to activate their effects during the summon response window, where on summon, cards like Judgment Dragon or Dark Armed Dragon would be able to activate their effects prior to the opponent interacting with the cards with things like Book of Moon. This can and regularly will be game determinative. Another change made in 2014 was the rollout of Master Rule 3 that revised the rules for field spells, where previously only one field spell was allowed on the board at a time, and if a second one entered the field zone, the other's field spell would be destroyed. Master Rule 3 would allow for more than one field spell to exist on the board at the same time, effectively changing the field zone into a continuous spell zone with extra steps. This completely removes Gear Town from the format as a strategy that was regularly triggered through the application of the field zone rules. But those are just cards affected by changed game mechanics through applications of modern rule sets. What about cards affected by interactions defined years after the format? In April 2020, a ruling was made affecting Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, the best hero fusion in the format, who, in return face down to the extra deck, would not activate his effect. Sure, I feel great that my board isn't getting blown up, but for the hero player, their 2010 strategy is suddenly at risk due to a ruling made 10 years after the fact. I'm not going to shill for historical accuracy, as strategy, execution, and deck building in modern Edison is not even remotely close to the format that we played 15 years prior. We're standing on the shoulders of giants and have had years of time and experience constantly changing our understanding of the format. But the Edison format experience does feel like it's under fire, and to me, the community response looks to be completely justified. So why is Konami even bothering risking one of the fewest W's that they finally managed to get with this community by endorsing the Time Wizard format? It has an audience, why ruin a good thing? There are some people that say it's to help judges who might not be familiar with individual formats. And to that, I say that's a bullshit argument. Print an FAQ, hand it out if it's that much of a problem. I'm sorry, but you're not going to convince me that the $20 billion Japanese company cares about volunteer staff that makes these events possible halfway around the world. Originally, I thought the change was purely for the sake of selling sealed product. The Rarity Collection isn't even hiding it, with their Nostalgia card pool slot being printed in a catch-up set with reprints for modern mainstays. Even in the most recent side set, Battle of Legends, reprints of Magical Android were placed in a product that provides a card slot for 3 archetypes receiving retro support. At their core, Konami is a business that wants to make money. They don't give a shit what resale price is on cards like a Secret Rare Judgment Dragon or a Ghost Rare Honest, but if it lets them make a sale, you better believe that they're going to print more of those Light of Destruction 5-packs. There was, however, another reason, and I want to raise attention to it here because I felt that this has to be the real reason why.
I think there is this discussion can only be understood through one lens, and that is they are making the decision to do this not because of anything relative to IRL play. They're making this decision because that is what mechanically they can do in Master Duel. Right? Has anyone else noticed that the changes that are being implemented are exactly the things that work in Master Duel? Like, they're able to prevent the EMZ and do the first turn draw because they coded that in already. The reason they can't do ignition effect priority, erratas, or field spell changes because that's what's in Master Duel. Like, that's the whole reason.
As someone who stopped playing Master Duel because of money, I'm 100% certain that this is the correct take. Sure, there's probably some merit to the idea of getting people to buy sealed product to bait them into playing modern formats, but even when it's difficult to find exact numbers, revenue reports from 2022 show Master Duel on launch exceeded $130 million. Financial statements for 2023 and 2024 show that while Konami did make quite a bit of money in US, Europe, and Asia regions, even when you combine all 3 of those regions for both years, you're not even beating the revenue Japan generated in 2023. It should be obvious that there's a shit ton of money to be made on the electronic platform, and even if they only get the people who are playing paper to get online, they found a way to get their player base to double dip, continuing to spend money getting the exact same cards but in an electronic collection. And with the added possibility of tapping into a new electronic card game marketplace, that sounds like a good enough reason to me to risk making a change like this. Another well-known player, Joshua Circular is so fucking back Schmidt, mentioned that
I do see some reasons as to why they're doing it, and it doesn't affect me as much personally because while I do like to play some Time Wizard, I usually travel to the bigger events for the main event, and I don't usually have that much time to participate in Time Wizard, like official tournaments. The majority of the time when I play Time Wizard, it's with friends, right, at home or even at like tournaments. I can sit down with friends and play some Time Wizard. That is most of the time how I do it, and in those cases, this will not affect the way I play Time Wizard with my friends. Like if I want to play Time Wizard with the old rules with my friends, I can still do that. For official tournaments, of course, this is something that is going to impact it a decent amount.
Well, it's hard enough to believe that he would scrub a main event quickly enough to have the opportunity to sign on for side events. This did jog my memory to another recent happening with our neighbors in the Magic the Gathering community, specifically talking about the fan favorite community-made format whose popularity has rapidly eclipsed the main format called Commander, and even though now it's a format sanctioned by WotC, obligatory fuck WotC, that has seen ban lists prior to their ban list announcement last year, the mention of bracketed tiers of play for Commander had huge chunks of the community voicing disinterest with the suggestion. Fast forward almost a year later, and people are taking the bracketed format in stride. This isn't exactly apples to apples, maybe closer to apples to pears, but it was something that I wanted to briefly mention here, as just going off of local groups, the changes have been seen as mostly fine, with some opting in it and others ignoring it because they were going to play CEDH anyway. When it comes to Edison, I do think there's justified concern with the possibility of splintering an existing small community into smaller groups. And with Konami stating that, in the future, we will offer the TCG version of Master Duel's time travel format, which uses current mechanics / card text but older card pools, it feels pretty obvious what they're trying to do here. But after seeing the outpour of support towards Keegan, I struggle to think that people will simply let go of the classic Edison Time Wizard rule set, and I'm happy to see that Konami intends to continue allowing sanctioned events for it. But now I want to talk about the time travel format and the unique opportunity we've been provided to explore new formats that never existed, specifically during Master Rule 4. On March 2017, Master Rule 4 required that monsters summoned from the extra deck would be required to occupy either the extra monster zone or a zone a link monster points to, because holy shit, fuck pendulum monsters. This was later revised on April 1st, 2020 to Master Rule 5 requiring that only link monsters and pendulum monsters would be required to summon to those zones, because fuck pendulum monsters. Look, I get it, I literally just bought another Edison deck and I enjoyed the format, but it's insane to me that I'm struggling to find a single person looking to have the conversation of the what ifs in Master Rule 4. And that's the point of this video. I think the time travel format is a good idea in concept for formats beyond the already established GOAT and Edison formats. Cards like Junk Speeder were released in August of 2018 and were effectively dead in the water due to these limitations. Firewall Dragon was something people were constantly begging to be addressed for years, rightfully claiming that it had anime plot armor and Konami wouldn't do anything to the poster child of the Link format. There's always discussion about I wonder what could be the next Edison level retro format, but the second we get an opportunity to have this discussion, I struggle to find anyone interested in participating. Finding out where the time travel format will be best applied is the discussion I want to see people start having. Last year, when I went to the WCQ, it wasn't to play 2 full days of one of the worst formats the game has ever seen. It was so that I and 500 other people could come together and appreciate the 2010 format, and then get blasted by Future Fusion in round 5. I genuinely enjoy Edison, but honestly, I can't help feeling that updating some rules could have had positive benefits. It doesn't feel good to win because your opponent didn't realize Aaron triggers flip effects, or that quick draw synchron starts a chain for you to crow the dandy. At the end of the day, I'm happy with the partial retraction and the decision to proceed with the time travel format since it gives both parties what they want. With a mostly positive response that I've seen from Master Duel players given an opportunity to play GOAT and Edison on the client, I think it might be worth exploring more. For GOAT, I remain skeptical, and Edison, I err on the side of cautious optimism. But for formats post Master Rule 3, do I think it's going to be perfect? Well, no, the ban lists at the time were not made with Master Rule 5 in mind, so I almost guarantee that there's probably some bullshit lurking that no one's expecting. But it does provide the opportunity for players to revisit the mystery box that is 3 years of Master Rule 4 formats utilizing Master Rule 5. Either way, it's not going to stop hordes of people who don't even play the game from saying that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a dead game and it was so much better when they normal summoned Blue Eyes White Dragon during their lunch period.